Hello and welcome to the 12th episode of Charity Cup Chats. This week I'm delighted to be joined by former caretaker boss Gary Waddock. Gary, thanks for joining me. How are you?
Yeah, very well. Yourself?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
So how have you been since Blues fans last saw you?
Obviously, with this COVID-19 and the lockdown and what have you, it's been, I think, very frustrating for everybody. And obviously trying to get out and about has been impossible, really. But the lockdown is easing now, so being able to get out a little bit more and trying to get back to a little bit of normality.
Yeah, definitely. And how has lockdown been for you?
Very, very difficult, I think, like for everybody else. There's not much you can do. You try and keep yourself fit. During that, you try and have a daily routine of, either fitness or trying to plan your day. But yeah, the longer it's gone on, the harder it's become. But we've got the football back on the telly now, so that gives us something to look at.
Definitely. And we'll come on to a certain type of football in a minute. But before you was a manager, you played a very long playing career, over 500 appearances. What was that like playing during the 80s and 90s? Because I imagine it's a lot different to the sort of football we see now.
Yeah, the game's changed from when I was playing, but I thoroughly enjoyed my time. It was always a dream of mine to be a professional footballer and to go on and play for the clubs that I played for. It was very pleasing from my point of view, So, yeah, I enjoyed the career. It was similar to my coaching and managerial career, ups and downs, but football was that way. So, but yeah, got some really good memories from playing.
Yeah, and like I just mentioned, you also had spells as manager. Arguably, the most successful spells you had were at Aldershot and Wycombe. By the time this video goes live, we'll know if Wycombe are a championship club or not. Are you surprised by the season they've had?
Well, I know Gareth Ainsworth and Richard Dobson really well, so they've done a fantastic job. And what they've achieved in the period of time that they've been at the club is amazing. So they got one final hurdle, and as you rightly say, once this goes out, we'll know the outcome. So I'm keeping everything crossed for them. They're two great guys, really pleased with what they've done, and hopefully they can be a championship club. They've got difficult opponents in Oxford, but what they've done this year, when everybody was writing them off, saying that they would go down, to go on and achieve what they've done, it's been a fantastic achievement already. And if they can get over that final hurdle to become a championship side, well, an amazing achievement.
Definitely, and I suppose it's a bit refreshing for the smaller clubs because even though on paper they're not who you'd expect to be up there, but that team spirit, it goes to show team spirit can push you all the way.
Well, they built their success on that, and Gaz and Dobbo there, I've been able to bring them players together. They've installed that into the group of players that they've got, and the team spirit takes you a long way. And on top of that, they got some real good players as well. So yeah, I wish them well. I hope they do it. And by the time this goes out, we'll know.
Definitely. So we're going to come on to your time at Southend now.
Yeah.
July 4th, you're announced as assistant manager. How did that come about?
Well, I know there was a position there. And I know Lee Harrison really, really well. So I put a call into him. He spoke to Kevin. I've known Kevin a little while, and we met up, had a conversation. Then he come back to me again. We met, and it just led on from there. And then obviously I was appointed as assistant manager, and the rest is history as such.
Am I right in thinking it was the first time you worked with Kevin?
Yes, it's the first time I've worked with him, but as I say, I've known him from a distance. I've met him a few times, but not close, and I've never worked with him before. But a real good guy, a real good coach, a lot of experience. And I was pleased that I was able to come in as his assistant.
Yeah, what attracted you to Southend in the first place?
It was a good club. There was a good group of players there, and obviously with what they achieved, by getting themselves out of the position that they were in the year before. You wanted to help and try and build on that, but unfortunately, it was a habit. You went in there, and to winning's a habit and losing's a habit, and it's always very difficult to try and turn that around.
Yeah, definitely. We'll come on to that more in a bit about the sort of losing mentality that the club's had, not even the past season, longer than that. Yeah. But could you notice that when you first joined, that there was that sort of lack of confidence in the players?
Yeah, you sense that quite early on, and it was a hangover really from the season before, which, as I said there, it's always difficult to shake that off. And when confidence is low, and you don't start particularly well, it's very fragile. So it is a difficult period.
Yeah, definitely. And we're talking of the transfer window. There are some signings who have done well at the club and who will have a future, some who have already left and didn't. How much of a say did you have in the signings?
Well, it's always discussed between the staff, but ultimately the manager and the chairman make them decisions. So you have some input, but the final decision is always with the chairman and the manager. So as you rightly say, there's been some very good signings there at the club. So, and some of the younger players coming through as well. So, sometimes it fits at a club where a player comes in and does extremely well. Sometimes it doesn't. So, that happens at any football club. You might be, on top of, everything going well, top of the league, full of confidence, and you sign a player and it doesn't particularly work out. So, sometimes the player fits and sometimes it doesn't. But all the homework in the world that you do on players, sometimes it fits, sometimes it doesn't.
Definitely, I guess that's just the way football is.
Yeah, it can be. Unfortunately, as I say, all the amount of work that you do behind the scenes before you make a signing, and you'd like to think that you've covered every base, but sometimes they don't settle. They don't settle in the area. They don't settle to the style of football. There's a number of factors behind that.
Yeah, and one of the biggest criticism from fans during the season was a lack of fitness and stamina. Obviously, when Drew Yearwood went to Brentford, he spent, I think it was 6 months getting his fitness up because it wasn't up to their standards. Would you share that view that the fitness of the players wasn't up to scratch?
You could. I think when anybody comes in, you can always argue the fact that players not fit enough, but they're professional footballers. Training programs are put in place, and obviously the players themselves have to push themselves during them sessions. So, pointing the finger at any individual or any player for that matter, things put in place. There's planning put in place. There's enough people, enough staff at the club to make sure that everything's in place. So. You can always look at that, and I think any new staff member coming in or management team would always question that. But you've also got to look at yourself as an individual. Are you doing enough yourself? Are you preparing enough yourself to get the best out of yourself and your preparation for games as well? So there's a lot of things aimed at that, fitness-wise. Preparation, lifestyle, etc. So, we can talk about it all evening, but the player themselves only know if they're fit enough. Did they prepare properly?
Yeah.
It's down to the individual to make sure that they're fully prepared and professional enough going into every single game and every single training session as well.
Yeah, and something we found watching the team was that Kevin Bond really wanted to play good football, knock it about, not just lump it up top and hope the striker gets it.
Yeah.
And it would work but unfortunately we'd concede a goal and then heads dropped. How hard was that for you in training to try and tell the players, it's okay if we concede, you just got to win the game?
Yeah, it's mentality, isn't it? We touched on it, confidence. If your confidence is fragile, anything that goes against you is always going to be difficult. Any setback to try and get your confidence back. So we would go into games, very confident of getting a result, and then starting the game reasonably well. And something may happen during the course of the game. Early on, you concede, and it's a mountain to climb then. And when things are not going your way, it's very difficult to turn around. As much as you try to do it from the staff side, from the players themselves, nobody wants to go onto the field of play and not do very well. They always want to go and win. But circumstances as well, things go against your decisions, poor performances. You can throw everything into the mix, but when your confidence is low, it's very, very difficult to turn that around.
Yeah, and when I was speaking to Kevin yesterday, he said that Jason Demetriou, after a game, asked him to change the playing style because the players weren't confident enough to fit it. Did you have discussions with him about maybe tinkering it a bit to make it a bit easier?
No, I think a conversation like that would be between a player and a manager. Some of the conversations are private between the players and the manager, and rightly so. But if that discussion did happen, so be it. But ultimately, we have to put something in place, a system, a style of play that suits the players. And when things are not going your way, all of us, we would look for some kind of excuse to try and turn things around, to make things better, to try and improve things, So, but I have to be honest with you, everything was tried to try and turn things around, from the players, from the staff, to try and make the whole place better.
Yeah. And obviously the start of the season didn't go well. We couldn't quite knock that losing mentality. And I think it was 7 out of 8 that we lost. Kevin ultimately resigned from the club. But usually when a manager leaves, his backroom staff do too. Was you expecting to get maybe a call from Ron? Were there any discussions like that?
No. Sometimes that does happen.
Yeah.
In terms of the manager going, and unfortunately, Kevin went. I was asked then to take over caretaker charge. I informed Kevin and spoke to Kevin about that, and obviously the staff to stay on as well. So we were asked to do that, and we've done that to the best of our ability.
Definitely. And were you given an indication how long you would be caretaker? Because that must have been one of the longest stints in football.
No. We took it hour by hour, and I think everybody in the end was getting a bit frustrated with it all, in terms of everybody wanted a decision to be made. But the chairman was very thorough in what he wanted to do. Obviously, he spoke to a number of people, and he came to the decision. It took some time. I was aware of that, and I just done the job along with the other members of staff.
Yeah.
So that was it, and then the appointment was made.
Yeah, and your first game in charge as caretaker was at home to Fleetwood. I think it was 3-1 down or 3-2 down, but we ended up getting a point. Did you see that as sort of a turning point, maybe?
Well, firstly, we come up against an extremely talented side in Fleetwood, and if you watched the game last night against Wickham, you could see what a good side they were. How we got the draw, I don't know, because they were very, very good. I'll be honest with you, we were fortunate. We got something from the game that possibly Fleetwood probably thought they should have gone on and won. But it was a starting point because of obviously the position that we were in. We needed to get something, especially at home in front of our home crowd.
Yeah. And something I noticed, I think it was 3 days later when we was at Shrewsbury away, I noticed we played quite a bit different to how we had under Kevin. Was that something you instilled in your training sessions?
I wouldn't say no. We went about anything any differently. I think unfortunately, when Kevin went, things do change. Everybody's I don't know how to put this, mentality, focus, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
that changes. And we didn't know how long we were going to be in charge for. Obviously, at that stage, the players didn't either. So I think we were all going into the unknown, and all of us were trying our best to turn it around, obviously with the bad run.
Yeah. And then that week again, we come to MK Dons away. Probably the longest 90 minutes of my life, that game. How was it for you?
Well, you say it was long for you. Can you imagine what it was like for us in the dugout on the touchline? It was an unbelievable game, really, because there was a lot of rumour and speculation about managers coming in and what have you, and the players obviously hearing it and reading it and what have you, and me and the staff we heard of it as well. But all credit to the players; they stay focused. They put in a hell of a shift that day, and they put their bodies on the line. We got a fantastic result. And again, we showed some resilience there to get that result. So I wouldn't say it was the greatest performance in the world, but it was a very valuable result.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember it. We'd like get the ball, score, and then just get away from our box. It felt like a bit like a cup game, didn't it?
Well, it did, because of as I touched on, the chairman was doing his work behind the scenes to try and, employ a manager. And obviously the players are aware of that as well. So, whether it was someone watching them in the stadium or outside, they wanted to give a good account of themselves. And, they were very disappointed as well with the start to the season, like we all were.
Yeah.
And, we wanted to turn that around, and it was a great place to do that. It's a fantastic stadium at MK Dons. But I also have to say the supporters on that day were magnificent. And I think with the reaction at the end, where everybody went over to the supporters to thank them for their support in real difficult times. And they deserve that, and they helped the group of players get that result on that particular day.
Yeah, and you mentioned about the rumours of the managers being at the ground, or whether it was just in the press. Were you interested in getting a job full time?
Look, from day one, it was a case of being asked to take over the reins with, Toddy and Lee, and we've done that. And if we would have won all the games that we were in charge, we'd have probably got the job.
Yeah.
But the results didn't go our way. And obviously the chairman wanted to go down a different route. So I fully respect that. And, I respect what he done. So all we done was try our best with, what we could do in them circumstances. And obviously, from our point of view, we wanted to get more results. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. But we got a few points. So, but as we touched on a little bit earlier, in hindsight, I suppose it would have been better if an appointment was made sooner and quicker for everybody.
Yeah, and something I know a lot of our fans, and myself included, respect you for is that it must be very difficult to be asked to lead a team without knowing like where your future lies. Like, I think it was nearly 50 days. How hard was that for you?
Well, it wasn't easy, because I didn't know if I was going to be kept on or I was going to lose my job. No different to other staff members as well.
Yeah.
So all we done was be as professional as we could be, and I think we were. I think we handled the situation in a very, very honest, professional manner. And, I think the chairman appreciated that. And I think everybody understood that we were in a real difficult position as a staff, and we just tried to do the best that we could.
Definitely. And I think where the fans maybe were a bit uptight during the first 7 games or whatever, once we got obviously you as caretaker, they were a lot more understanding of the situation. Could you feel that tension from the fans was starting to lower a bit?
I think from the supporters' point of view, I have to say this first and foremost, it's a fantastic fan base. The support that they give the club, the team, was quite amazing, really, considering the position that we're in and the results that we were getting. I have to give the supporters some, credit for that. I think the longer it went on, I think it would become harder for everybody. And I think the supporters wanted to know who was going to be in charge at the end of the day, like we all did. So I think all parties, everybody done the best. and tried the best that they possibly could.
Without a doubt. And we're going to come on to your last game in charge against Doncaster. Sol Campbell was announced 45 minutes before kickoff. When did you find out that he'd got the job?
Well, we knew when we reported to the ground reasonably early for the home games, and we knew he was in the building, and we knew that the appointment was any time in that afternoon. So I think they were just trying to, dot the I's, cross the T's as such. So whether it's an hour, 45 minutes before the game, we all knew that the appointment had been made. And that was that, really. Yeah,
and I imagine you was probably hoping for a good send-off, like a good result to leave the club with.
Well, yeah, I wanted to. The players wanted to. But it was a very, very difficult day all round. I'm not making any excuses at all for that, but it was a difficult day. It was and then how the game panned out as well. It was very, very difficult.
Yeah, without a doubt. And despite a red card, we go 1-0 up. But we were coming up against probably one of the best footballing sides in the league. And we slowly start to ship the goals in.
Yeah, well, you lose a player. And then a team that is very comfortable in possession. Over a period of 90 minutes, 93, 94 minutes, whatever the time is in that particular game, they're always going to find some space and exploit the space and hurt you, basically.
Yeah.
And they certainly done that.
Yeah. Did you kind of feel a bit helpless on the touchline as the goals started shipping in?
You try certain things. You try different formations. You try and block it off. You try and make it hard for the opposition. And ultimately, in the end, it was very, very harmful to everybody. The scoreline, the performance, and obviously with the new manager in the stand as well. I felt for the players because they wanted to probably put on a good show for him, to show him how good they were individually as players. But things went from bad to worse in that particular evening.
Yeah, and obviously, how did you find it that was to be your last night with Southend?
I didn't actually know until probably after the game and the next day. I had a meeting with the chairman the following day. I knew, without being told, that it's probably that was my time would be up at the club. And then I had the meeting with the chairman the following day, and we had a very good, open, frank conversation, and the chairman, he wants the club to do very, very well, and his heart is in the right place for that football club. And unfortunately, that evening it hurt everybody. And obviously, the time was right for the new manager and his staff to come in to steady the ship and to put some foundations in to go forward.
Yeah, were you still hoping to stay on, maybe like as a coach or like whatever role that may be?
Well, I didn't know at the time his backroom staff, but the closer it got, and then when he was appointed, and you saw the people in and around the guard, you then knew that there was going to be no position there for you. But it was an unfortunate ending. By my time at the club.
Yeah, and obviously I don't know how things work. I've not been at a football club, but did you have any discussions with Sol about the team?
No, none at all.
No. Okay, no. And obviously the club, we all know, is in a very bad place right now. Sol couldn't steady the ship, and it probably will be the next decision will probably make or break the club. Could you quite feel the things that were going wrong when you joined?
Well, I think for the chairman now, he had a big decision to make on the last appointment.
Yeah.
I think he's got a bigger decision this time around as well. And I think he'll be thorough again like he was the last time. And from my side, I hope that, for the chairman and for the club and for the supporters, that it's the right appointment because, everybody at that football club, chairman, everybody associated to Southend deserves better, and they deserve to they shouldn't really be in that division.
Yeah.
If I'm being brutally honest, but circumstances, decisions, etc., have caused that. So I'm hoping that, and I know the chairman will be thorough with that, and I'm hopeful that the next manager that comes in gets it right and they start going in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the owner, he can't be knocked for his investment. He has backed the managers.
Yeah,
But
totally.
yeah. But do you think maybe, I know a lot of our fans say we need a sort of CEO, director of football. Do you think they play an important role at a football club?
Yeah, they do. But it's whatever your chairman, your owner, not only at Southend but at any club.
Yeah.
Does he need someone in that position? Director of football. Do they need a director? It all depends what the club is and how you run the club.
Yeah.
The chairman's very passionate about his football club. He's invested a hell of a lot of money into it, and rightly so. He deserves to have a say.
Yeah.
And whatever he decides to do, I'm sure all these decisions are meant for the best interest of the football club.
Yeah.
So whatever he decides, he's doing. He's making that decision for what he feels is right for the football club.
Yeah. And even though the history books won't look back kindly on this past season, how did you find your time at Southend?
Yeah, as I say, it ended, unfortunately, not in the best way. It's a very, very good football club, as was touched on previously. The supporters, very passionate, very enthusiastic, and everybody there at that club deserves better. But I think with what's gone on, and with some of them young players coming through, and for whatever reason getting they're running the team, they've taken their opportunity, and there's a solid, base there now to work from. And, Ricky Duncan has done a magnificent job there with the players that he's been able to bring into the club, into the youth department, and then, being able to have a pathway for them players to come through into the first team. So, whoever is appointed as the next manager, he has got some really talented players there that, with, sprinkling of good experience, it's a good foundation there.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously our under-23s boss, Craig Fagan, is in the running. Do you think he would be a good fit? Obviously, I don't think he has been a manager of a first team before, but he has worked with the players. Yeah,
look, Craig, I know Craig well. I got to know him really well at my time at the club. We used to speak regular. I'd personally, it'd be a real good choice, I think, because firstly, he knows what's gone on at the club. He's seen it not from afar, but he's been involved in the club, but he's been in not in the first team environment. So he's been able to step back and have a look at it and see what's actually gone on. He's worked with them younger players. Some of them younger players have gone into the first team and done extremely well and taken their opportunity. So, I believe he's one of the favourites. He's in the running. Yeah, he would be a very good appointment, in my opinion.
Yeah, and have you followed our results since you left, like over the past few months?
Yeah, I have, every one of them, every one of them.
Good. And from a personal point of view, obviously you're not a professional club. Am I right in thinking you run your own coaching academy now?
No, I've been asked to be a coach with an academy.
Oh, right.
A friend of mine who I've known back from when I was a manager at Wycombe, he was running the community side of things at Wycombe, and he's been onto me for years to come on board with him to be like a head coach of his academy. And he approached me some months ago, and I agreed to do it. But now with this COVID-19, we've had to put a stop to it. We've not started it up yet, so we're waiting for government guidelines before we can start getting it up and running. So but it gets me out onto the grass, it gets me coaching, and it keeps me involved in what I love doing. Yeah.
And would you be interested in a return to management at a professional club still?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I don't care in what capacity. I don't, whether it's manager, whether it's assistant manager, whether it's a coach. I don't really care as long as I can get back out onto the grass and help and develop players, whether they're young players or whether they're senior players coming to the end of their careers. If I can help and develop, and that's the part that I like doing. And then if it's senior level, is always the game at the weekend or on a Tuesday, Wednesday evening where the result comes into it. But I like to develop and help people.
Yeah. What do you find the best thing about coaching is? Is it the training sessions or the game or like the build up?
Well, it's a combination because, when you start your week, you're building towards the game, whether it, as I said, on a Tuesday or on a Saturday. So you're building up day to day. And then, at the end of the week, Friday, you've done all your preparation. Then you look forward to the game on the Saturday. And you then hope that the players put into, action what you practice throughout the week. And that tells you then the outcome at 5 o'clock on a Saturday evening, whether it's been a good week or not.
Yeah, and I imagine a Saturday evening is probably either the best or the worst day of the week.
Yeah, that shapes your weekend, that shapes your following week, and it's quite interesting really, because a win you let go very, very quickly, and you get on to the next game. But a loss, that stays with you for quite some time, over the weekend, Monday, Tuesday, and it hangs around for, you analyse, you go back over the game, you watch the game over and over again to see what you could do better. But as I say, you win the game, you move on very, very quickly. You don't really enjoy that moment as much as you should. But with the loss, you're in that mindset and very difficult to shake off.
Definitely. And when I was speaking to Taylor Moore, who was obviously at the club last year, he said that he did have to get a mental coach because he was finding it hard. That never get too high and never get too low. Is that something you find common amongst players and obviously coaches like yourself?
I think you have to find that middle ground because you shouldn't get too high and you shouldn't get too low. People do, and I totally understand that. And when I started off on my journey as a player and then into the coaching and managerial side, you do get on a high and you do get on a low, but there is the middle ground. And I'll be brutally honest with you, this profession, this career is a roller coaster ride. You are going to get spells where it's very, very good and you enjoy it, and there's going to be spells where you have to dig in and it's going to be tough. And you find out about yourself and the people around you. So you have to be mentally strong to deal with that, because you've got to stand there and take the flak. If you're a player, if you're a coach, if you're a manager, the buck stops with you as the manager. And you have to be mentally strong to deal with that.
Definitely. And before we come on to the questions that fans have been sent in, I know I touched on it earlier, but from all fans, I would like to say thank you because, like I said, it must have been very difficult to be caretaker without knowing where your future was. And I think, like John White said, you were a top professional. So thanks.
No, that's thank you. It's very kind of you. Very kind of John. But I also have to say to the supporters, they were very good in real difficult times, and I'm hoping now that start the new campaign that they'll have a team that they'll be proud of and get some wins, get some results, and be at the right end of the table, challenging to go up a level or two.
Fingers crossed. So the first question is from Adam Smith, and he says, "What was the atmosphere of your dressing room like when you joined the club?"
Well, at the beginning, Adam, it was a case of pre-season. Everybody's, even though the season before was difficult, but it finished on a high. You go into the new pre-season where everybody's fresh. They want to do well, but all of a sudden, when things don't go so well, that changes very, very quickly. But the players wanted to do well. Every time they stepped out onto the field of play, they were positive and they wanted to do well for the club. Unfortunately, that didn't materialise.
Yeah, and something which has been quite a big topic of what we've spoken about tonight. Ben Flynn says, "Did you think you'd be caretaker for so long?"
No, I didn't really. I didn't. I thought it would be short-lived. I thought after the MK Dons game, I thought that would probably be it. But circumstances and decisions, what have you, again, didn't materialise. So we were still in charge. So, I didn't think it would go on as long as it did.
Yeah, and I think according to Sky Bet, if you had been in charge for one more game, you would have been counted as our permanent manager, which is a bit of a weird stat.
Oh, yeah, that's a strange. I didn't know that. Strange, very strange.
Yeah. Louis Ellison says, I think you've already answered this, but were you hoping to get the job permanently despite the state the club was in?
If I'm being really honest, I didn't think I'd ever get the job. From day one, I did. That was, Kevin was the manager of the club when he asked me to come in, and I wanted to do extremely well for Kevin as his assistant. And then, unfortunately, Kevin left, and from that point, I honestly didn't think I would get the permanent role. So I just done the job to the best of my ability, probably knowing that I wasn't going to be hanging around when an appointment was going to be made.
Yeah. If Ron did approach you, would you have taken it?
Well, Ron didn't appoint me, so that's why I'm sitting here talking to you.
Fair enough. Jack Feely says, what's your biggest life achievement?
My biggest life achievement?
Yeah.
Well, I've got two, really. Getting married and my daughter. They're my two biggest, and they're both on par.
Nice. And he also wants to know what your typical Saturday evening is like.
Well, if we lose, at the moment it's fine because there's been no games, so I've enjoyed my Saturday evening. But
I share that view.
yeah. But if I'm involved in the game in any capacity, and you lose on a Saturday night, forget the weekend. I'm miserable. I'm not the most likable guy in the world. But if we win, and the complete opposite, the world's a much better place.
Yeah, and I think my mates can agree with that from my point of view. They're lucky to get a word out of me on the coach home.
I think we're all like that, though.
Yeah.
I think we're all like that, and that just shows you what it means to you and how passionate you are about your club and what you're trying to do. If you didn't have that, there's no point being involved in the game.
Yeah, and just quickly, did you find out on coming home from games that it would be a kind of like a down atmosphere on the coach home?
Yeah, most definitely. As soon as you go into the dressing room after the game, the mood in the dressing room is down, and again, it's the complete opposite when you win. So we're no different really to the supporters. It hurts us as much as it hurts you guys, and it does hurt. I can tell you that for a fact.
Yeah, and like Mark, when I spoke to Mark Phillips, he said, us footballers, we don't need to be told that it's not good enough because we are our harshest critic. How do you deal with that as manager going into the game? Because obviously you don't want to pummel them and make them even less confident.
Well, after a game, depending how the performance, the result has gone, sometimes, managers say things in the heat of the moment where I think you should step back and look at it, reflect, and come in, whether it's a Sunday or a Monday, in a calmer manner. And if you've got something to say, then you have the conversation.
Yeah.
But if you've had a defeat, you've got the week then to prepare the players. You get it off your chest, they get it off their chest. And you're the one that has to set the tone and the example. If you're going around moping and that, they pick up on it straight away. So you're the one. Sometimes you have to wear the mask. Inwardly, it's hurting badly.
Yeah.
You have to put a mask on to show everybody, come on, we've got to go again at the weekend, and you're smiley and bright, but inwardly it's killing you. But you can use it the other way as well, where inwardly you're really happy, and then the mask goes on and you could be quite angry. So it works.
Definitely. Would you say you're one of the managers who don't like to celebrate too much when a goal's scored? Because you know that then one might be coming 2 seconds later. Yeah,
inwardly you're happy.
Yeah.
But you only celebrate at the final whistle in terms of then you've won the game, the fixture. Because, as you just touched on there, you could take the lead and it takes a second to score a goal. So yeah, the only time really is after the game when, that final whistle's gone, the job's been done and you can celebrate.
Did that take a bit of a time to master that skill? Because when a goal scored, my first instinct is jump up in the air, go crazy like a lunatic. But you can't really do that when you're in the touchline, can you?
Well, you can look at some managers, they do.
Yeah,
Their emotion comes out. But it all depends how you are as a person, I think. If you want to try and be calm and not get too excited, or you go the other way and then you're jumping around and, shouting and hollering and stuff like that. But I try to be calm, and keep my focus on the game. And hopefully, you then give the information to the players in a calmer manner. So you then celebrate after the game if you've won it.
yeah. And James Pell says, who's your inspiration?
In terms of what? Coaching, management?
Yeah, we'll say within football.
Well, I've been lucky enough to play for some really good clubs and coach and manage at some really good clubs as well. But there's not any one individual. There's a number of individuals, that I've been lucky enough that I've worked with. And you take a little bit. I would say the best person as a player was Terry Venables. He was ahead of his time as a manager, and you always remember how he conducted himself and how his training sessions were prepared and planning that went into them. But you take bits from everybody that you've worked with. That's a real good question. But you like to also think that you're giving good information. You're trying to inspire young players, and you're a mentor, if you like, as well to them to try and help them as well. Good question.
And I think something where I've listened to, when managers do interviews, they all say that they do take a bit from other people. Do you think that's why the game develops? Because everyone's taking a bit of something. That's where we get the new, like Wenger ball, Pep's tiki-taka, things like that.
I think everybody takes a bit from the people that they like and respect and stuff like that. But also they have to then deliver it in their own manner, in their own way. Because you can't be a clone of somebody. You have to be your own man.
Yeah.
And I think that's how it evolves as well, the game. You take bits from him, but then you deliver it in your style, in your manner. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes people respect you, sometimes they don't. But ultimately, as a manager, you're judged on your results. You might be the best coach in the world, but if you get beat every weekend, people are going to question that. Yeah. But on the flip side of that, you might be the worst coach in the world, but the best manager. But you might have the best group of players as well and be the worst manager, but they get you the result. So it's a difficult one, but all you can do is do your best and prepare yourself and make sure you've done everything to try and help that player or that group of players on that particular training session.
Without a doubt. And Matt Ramsey wants to know, who was the best trainer at Southend?
The best trainer. I don't know. There's two young lads that I'd like to mention because of their attitudes to the work that they've done. One's now not at the club. He's made an unbelievable move.
I think I know who's coming up.
To Manchester United. Bish, he was unbelievable, and his mate, young Charlie Kelman as well.
Yeah.
Them two lads would be in extremely early in the morning in the gym, work extremely hard during the training sessions, and want to do extras afterwards. So I would say them two young lads have set an example for the younger lads coming through. And I think both of them have got really bright futures in the game.
Yeah. And do you think when players do, obviously, like you said, come in early, stay late, push themselves, does that push the rest of the players on because they want to be on level with them?
Well, I just think them two individuals that I spoke about, they wanted to do it for themselves first and foremost. They wanted to be the best that they could be.
Yeah.
And they were giving themselves every opportunity to be that. Some players come in, do their work and go. But again, whatever works for that individual, you know. And again, they're only judged on a Saturday with their performance and what they do on a Saturday. But them two lads were giving themselves every chance of preparing properly for whenever the next game was. But as I say, everybody's different. Everybody prepares differently. But as long as they perform when they need to perform, that's all they're judged on.
Yeah, definitely. Because obviously, like at the club 3 years, wait, what year? 20, yeah, 3 years ago when Noel Ranger was here, he wouldn't train well, but then he'd go on the pitch and he'd score.
Oh, exactly. You know, everybody's different. And if that suited him, all well and good. But he delivered on a match day.
Yeah.
Some players work extremely hard during the week and don't deliver. So, you know, there's a balance. You've got to find what's right for you. And over a period of time, that player will find that. So, but the question was about, you know, who's the best trainers, and them two lads were the best two trainers.
Good. And the last question I've got for you is something I ask all the guests. If you had any advice for 7-year-old you, what would that be?
For a 7-year-old?
Yeah, for you, if you could talk to yourself when you were 7, you could give
right,
any advice.
Well, it's a long time ago. I can't remember that. Can't remember that far back. Well, I think I've touched upon it there, where you've got to work as hard as you can, take every opportunity to develop your game, listen to the advice that's given to you, respect the advice that's given to you, and then as you develop and get older, you'll take the good bits from it, use the good bits, and then you'll make up your own mind. But, you know, you have to work hard at your game. Every player has been gifted, if you like, with a certain amount of ability. And as a 7-year-old, you may have some potential. Make sure that you fulfill your potential. And the only way you do that is by working hard, really.
Yeah. Well, it's been great listening to you for the past hour. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have.
Yeah, I have. It's been great. And I wish everybody at the club success next year. I hope it's a successful year for the club. That everybody deserves that. I enjoyed my spell at the club. Unfortunately, it was short-lived. I wish it would have finished better, but I wish everybody well.
Yeah, and I know that all the fans will share that and wishing you well as well. And I know we'll take a good look if you're in a club again in the near future.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And before we do leave, remember this is all for Just an Edinburgh Foundation and Havens Hospice. If you have enjoyed this interview with Gary, please do donate. It'd be great to get to £1,000. Cheers, everyone.